Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Weekly Polls Pick of the Week. This is episode number 59. This is a podcast where Steve and I talk about primarily new single issue comics. If you're joining us for the first time, we primarily discuss a bunch of different styles and genres of comics that appeal to our twisted and bizarre sensibilities. As before, I thought we'd start us off with a question. And one of the things I just thought about recently is with comics, where we often get one issue per month. Sometimes they come more frequently, and sometimes they're even less frequently where we have big gaps. Like with Sacrificers, I think they're on a 3-month hiatus. So my question for you is, do you ever go back and reread previous issues? And what is there any kind of criteria or rules that determine whether you decide to go back and reread something?
Yeah, for as far as single issues go, I think it's rare that I'll go back and read single issues before the run is done. Maybe in the case like the Sacrificers, or if there's a series that's going to wrap up that I kind of lost track of what was happening and I'm excited for the finale, I'll go back and reread the first however many issues if not too many. But I do go back and read full runs, but those have already been wrapped up. So it's not too often that I'll go back and read a series before it's finished.
Yeah. I would say I'm the same, but I admit there's a lot of instances where I'm like, I don't know if it's, older age. I'm not saying I'm old, but I'm not young anymore. But there are times where I'm like, what the hell just happened? There is once in a while a synopsis, and I greatly appreciate that. And I think comics should do that more often. A very basic synopsis at the beginning, not necessarily, all of the plot points or whatever, but I do think it helps.
Yeah, a synopsis is nice, especially for a series that's very complex and has a lot going on or has a lot happening or happened. I think that's really helpful to just refresh your memory, because it's not too often you get consistent issues. A lot of the times you'll have gaps because of whatever reason. So it's nice to have a refresher.
Yeah. Well, I guess we're continuing to jump into the DC All In. I don't know which one. I think we both read Absolute Batman. Do you want to start us off with that one?
No, let's go ahead and start us off. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I have to say I did not read what was it? The kind of deluxe
all-in special thing.
Yes, the special issue, and I missed out at my comic shop, and I was going to pick up the digital version, and I just failed miserably to do that. But what can you do? I don't know if it mattered that much. Plus, you shared a very nice video that helped kind of summarize what the special issue tried to do. So I will just say I like this. It's got a grittier tone. We have a very different take on Alfred, definitely, and I was really thrown at the beginning for he seems to be a very different kind of character. And that was just fascinating. Batman as the caped crusader does not really make an entrance until halfway through, and I actually appreciated that. I like the setup. I like that we're kind of coming into this world. So it's very stylish. I have a feeling. So I maybe it's not a gripe, but I just feel like maybe this. It's still a similar character. He's very strong and super muscular and just like he's huge, and for whatever reason that didn't work for me as much. And I don't know. I
Mhm.
wonder what they were going for with that. Um, and so just kind of his look was a little bit different for me. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but generally, I'm really interested in some of the other All In series as well. So I've already picked up Green Lantern
Mm.
for next week, and really curious to see now what they do with these characters because, um, you know, Batman and the backstory of Bruce Wayne is quite different. Is you know, should we say? I don't. I'll let you decide how much you want to say. I don't know. I feel like I want people to kind of discover for themselves.
Mhm.
But yeah, generally overall, I was pleased with this one.
Yeah, so we talked last week about being excited about this about All In and reboots and kind of reimagining Elseworlds and all that kind of thing. So I'm very careful because I think we all have certain expectations, certain things we would like to see in a book like this, or so I'm trying not to get caught up in what I want to see or what I want to happen versus what actually it is they're doing. I was a little bit surprised with the art because not in a bad way, but the art is very manga esque, has that manga feel to it. And we jump right in to the story. The Bruce Wayne, we do have him as not the rich kid. He's someone who's construction worker. He looks like he's been in trouble with the law before. He's someone just a normal person, and so the the Batman so Batman isn't really that different from as far as the core the core of Batman is pretty much the same. We don't have a ton of variation from that. We have a little small differences, and of course we're introduced to a lot of characters in this first issue. Batman and his suit I thought were pretty cool. That his his cape and the way that it's basically a weapon. The logo on his chest that everyone was going wild over, good and bad. Turns out that it's a weapon on its own, and I thought that was pretty neat. I was hoping for a little bit more of a year one type of thing where we see Batman from the very beginning. We see him get into the suit, into the kind of Caped Crusader role, and not midway through where he's already an established hero for the most part. It seems like he knows what he's doing. I would like to see some struggle, to see him start off, kind of discover what he's doing. And I know origin stories are we've seen the Batman origin story a lot of times, so it's hard to go back to that. But again, we do also get his parents again. We get that whole thing, and so yeah, I think they did some good things, and I did like the brutal nature of Batman, that he is fighting these criminals and he's going to hurt people. I mean, you can't really get around that. And it does get a little gorier than I expected, but that's a good thing. I like that they're pushing the boundaries a little bit, but not going too far over. So yeah, overall, I thought it was good. I think we're off to a good start, and I'm excited to see where they go from here.
I'm reviewing now something called Knights versus Samurai. This is from Image Comics, and the author is David Dastmalchian. He's actually an actor,
Hmm.
and he was in the Suicide Squad and played the Polka Dot Man. He's like a character actor.
Oh
He's
yeah.
been in a lot of interesting like sci-fi stuff. He was in Dune. Um, I think he was also in Blade Runner 2049. So, but he's written other comics. So this is not his first comic. I really like the cover of this one, but the interior artwork was very different
Hmm.
from the cover. Much rougher, and I don't know how to best describe that. This is an audio platform. So, but I think for anybody who is listening to this, Very curious to hear your thoughts about, if you've read this, how would you describe this interior artwork? Because the word rough or bold, very bold lines, almost like they're using a black marker a lot. And in some cases, things are very blurred out. And the artwork, I don't think I like looked through it deeply, but it is not is not working for me that well. However, I did like the story. We have a character who's like a new knight. He's known for killing dragons, and we learn that dragons are starting to go extinct in this world. And then he is sent east to assist missionaries who are being attacked by not dragons, but I guess demons. And then the story kind of shifts more to a nautical adventure. So people that like boats and that sort of, or not so much pirates yet. So I was okay with the story, and I thought there was even some humor that was okay. I have to mention it was only $2.99, so maybe I'll continue with it, but the artwork is so inconsistent and variable that that's the part I'm really struggling with on this one.
So it sounds like a good story can overcome bad artwork. Is that?
I like to think that. I don't. Should I say it's bad? It is. I don't know. I'm not an artist. It's. I wish you could see it to judge. It's just. Yeah. To answer your question, I think the short answer is probably. But you really have to like the story, and the story is. Even the title wasn't really that exciting. I wonder if it was decided by committee. Knights versus samurai. It's not very thoughtful, but I am enjoying the story. So, and given it's only $2.99, I think I'll give it one more shot.
Yeah, I'm looking at the art now. There's a preview on the Image website for the first few pages. It is definitely bold.
Mm-hmm. Very bold.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, artwork is one of those things. I wonder if it's a stylistic choice or if it's just their style. Yeah. The next one for me is Get Fury 6. This is by Garth Ennis and Jason Burrows. This is, of course, by Marvel Comics. This is the final issue of the series, and I wish it wasn't the final issue. There was certain storylines that it was setting up for the first 5 issues, and it had a lot of strings that it was kind of laying out for us throughout the 5 issues, and some of them felt like they can go a lot longer, and some of the storylines felt very rushed here at the end. Like it doesn't feel like they had enough runway to finish off all these different. There's a couple of storylines that just felt unfinished. Like they were wrapped up, but it was very fast, and it was done in a different way. The stories were wrapped up in a different way. I don't want to spoil what exactly happens, but it was very fast, and it was very odd the way that some of the storylines were wrapped up. There was a lot of, it was strange. But I think I like that it fits in the Punisher timeline. It does explore what happens to our heroes when they go through certain things and how it changes them. You know, the sacrifices that they make to do the right thing, or to the mental and physical challenges and injuries they have after. So yeah, it's not my favorite finale, but I'm always happy to return to the Ennis and Burroughs universe when I can, especially the Punisher and Fury. So a little bit disappointing, but still a fun 6-issue run, and it's nice to just. I think that this is something that was mentioned years ago that they were doing together. So we finally got it, and although it does feel a little rushed, I was still happy with it.
So would you recommend this as a trade paperback or as a volume?
I would say only if you're a fan of the Punisher Max run and the Fury Max run. I think if you're a fan of those, then yes. But if you're not familiar with those, I'd say read those first and see if, because I think it's I think it's more enjoyable knowing where it fits in the timeline than it is to just kind of read it on its own. So I would say read those first. And if you enjoy it, then it would probably fit in it would probably be more enjoyable. Yeah. So the next one I have is one that it's definitely not. I like how at the beginning of the show we mentioned that newish comics is not. They're not always the most recent. Because sometimes I find a book in the store that's on a shelf somewhere and just waiting to get read. So the next one for me is Minor Arcana. This is number 1 by Jeff Lemire by Boom Studios. So Teresa, our main character, returns home after a long hiatus, if you will, and isn't too happy about it. And she returns home to a lot of problems. I think these types of stories are fun because I think we can all relate to them in some way, that we, in some ways, run away from problems as we get older, and to go back and face those old problems that either we're running from or just don't want to deal with, and face certain truths about ourselves and our history, the things that we've been through. I think it's a great way to start a story and to explore the characters and to kind of unravel the story and the different layers of the personal past of each one of them and how it all fits together. And Jeff Lemire's art style is very unique. It's very, I think it fits well for these kind of personal stories that you can see the pain on their faces. You can see the uncomfortable, they're uncomfortable, whether they're uncomfortable or they're in thought or whatever. I think it conveys those emotions very well. I think it fits very well for these up close and personal types of stories. It wouldn't fit, I don't think, for more like superheroes type of story. I think it fits very well for these, and it feels like very, very up close and personal, I guess, his art style. So yeah, I'll definitely be continuing.
I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah, I've read the first 2, and would you agree that Teresa is a flawed character?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think all of them are flawed. Yeah.
I think you said that you were hooked when I mentioned that.
Yeah.
And I like that very much as well. And you're kind of rooting for these. It's not because, and I wanted to say, like, for me, it's because I am rooting for those people to overcome all these, challenges that many of us are faced with.
Yeah, I think it makes them all relatable for sure.
Yeah. So next up for me is a series I've been reading for a while now, and this is Geiger, number 7. And the last issue was a bit of a downer for me. If you watched Breaking Bad, do you remember the fly episode where it was just about them chasing the fly?
Yeah.
I think that's what happened in the last one, which I actually think that was fine. But in the last one, I don't know if it's because they ran out of time or whatever. But it was a pretty big departure, and it was about these kind of mutant animals in a zoo. So fortunately, we're back to the kind of the main story here. So I'm pleased to see that, because I was a little bit. I mean, I was just a little bit put off. So it looks like I'm back in. Geiger as a character in this one, it seems like he's becoming more and more nihilistic. I will say there is a visceral scene where he's like this radioactive guy, I guess, and he glows, and he can become extremely hot, or so he kind of melts somebody. Like I said, it's a visceral scene, and really makes you think. Well, this guy, maybe while he's kind of a hero, he's pretty much an anti-hero. And we do see some giant insects here, which is pretty cool. I'm a fan. And I used to work in an entomology lab, Steve. I don't know if you knew that way back when. One thing I will mention is we do not have, is it Gary Frank, the artist? He is not with us this time. It's a new artist, and I didn't notice it right away, so I guess that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But the artist is Paul Pelletier, with the same author being Jeff Johns. So because it's a return to form, and we're getting more of we're this kind of ended with a glimpse into who is pursuing Geiger and why. It looks like there's some buildup, I think, for I don't know if the issue 8 is going to be the final one. We'll see where it goes. I have a feeling it's going to continue for a while. Mm-hmm. But I'm curious. Yeah, I'm back in, like I said.
Nice. Yeah, the Fly episode. It's definitely like that type of story that I forget what the name of that episode is. The networks have dubbed the low budget kind of filler episode. But yeah, it's very hit and miss for sure.
Yeah.
The next one for me is Precious Metal 5. This is by, I'm going to try not to butcher everyone's name, Darcy Van Polgeist, Ian Burtham, and Matt Hollingsworth. It's by Image Comics. Now, I'm going to be honest. I don't really know what's going on. I don't really know what's happening. And on the other hand, I don't really care too much. I'm still enjoying it. I think there's the artwork, the style, the it all, the story, the visual, it all works for me. And there's something that I just feel like I'm missing something. This is probably one I'll have to go back and reread before the next issue, the final issue. And maybe it's because I haven't read Little Bird. I don't know. Either way, I'm still enjoying it. And maybe I'm just dumb, because it's another possibility. But the artwork and the visuals will definitely leave an impression on you, and it'll really stick with you. I just wish I had a firmer grip of what's happening, but I'll give it a reread and hopefully it'll sink in the second time. But yeah, really, really great series. I just wish I had a better understanding of what's happening. The next one for me is Sentinels. Now, this is one that it just sounded interesting. I read the synopsis, and I'll just be honest, they got me with the synopsis. The Sentinels are now in the hands of mutants, or in control of mutants, instead of trying to exterminate them. They're now under their control. I didn't mind the art so much, but the dialogue just didn't pull me in. And I think some of these characters I just don't feel an attachment to. I'm not familiar with them. I don't know if they're new characters or existing. I always have this affinity for the Claremont X-Men run, and I just haven't been. I don't remember another time other than like the 90s, the early 90s, the Jim Lee Uncanny X-Men runs, when I really felt like I was enjoying it, and that was a long time ago. So I just don't really have an attachment to any of these characters. I don't really have an attachment to the world anymore, and I think it's a fun idea. I couldn't get into it, so I won't be continuing this one.
I did a quick search online. Are the Sentinels mutant hunting robots, or is this something totally different? Okay.
Yeah. But the mutants not control them, and they do some cool things. I think they did some interesting things. Like I said, I just don't. I feel like we get into these new series, these new number ones with the kind of like just with the understanding that or you're familiar with what's going on or what else is happening in the X universe, and I don't know, so it's hard for me to really get attached and to really sink my teeth into it. Yeah. So but I tried.
Yeah, I think with DC and Marvel, when it's a number one, it's like it might be it's a character that's maybe not been in the limelight, but they've lived a long life of continuity in a lot of cases. I actually thought, though, with Neil before Zod, we didn't get too much of that. I thought it kind of stood alone pretty well.
Yeah, I think he did a really good job at it. And they didn't really start integrating the rest of the DC universe in until later. And even when they did, it wasn't very much of it. It was just a little bit. So I appreciated that. But we need more of that. But the sad thing is, Kneel Before Zod didn't survive its run. So yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, we were bummed. So next, I have Huge Detective #2. This one actually did come out a few weeks ago. I can't remember if #1 was my pick of the week, but I really enjoying what they're doing here. Huge is a type of being. It's not just large. It's they're. If you use the word giant, I learned that that's considered a slur in this world. So there are these beings that came from the bowels of the earth and just showed up, and they're. I think I explained it from issue #1, but there is a lot of really, I think, fascinating world building here, and so I feel that this is a case where I felt like I almost needed to go back and reread #1, but it just has some really fun vibes where you have like these huge beings, and you're not. I think we have like an inner space situation here in this one. That's the movie with Martin Short. I think it came out in the 80s, where there's like these people are shrunk down and they're inside Martin Short's body. In this case, the huge. There are these seem to be people that are either on top of or inside the huge character who is the detective in this case. Some really beautiful coloring here, and what they're doing that is I've not seen very much is they throw you off with perspectives. With one panel will be you don't realize it, but if a huge is in one of these huge beings, I don't know how to describe it any better. He may be taking like the size of a skyscraper, and then they might zoom in on the regular humans that are so tiny, and so the perspectives throw you off quite a bit. And sometimes you're not sure who's speaking, but it's just it's very different. I do feel a little bit confused due to these perspective differences, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because it's different and new, and I hope to get. I think I'm getting used to it. So.
Sounds. Yeah, I like that you mentioned Inner Space. It's
I'm glad you knew that one.
80s classic. Yeah, it's good stuff. I mean, it was when I watched it when I was like 10 or whatever, but who knows what it is now? If it's any good now. I was probably, I don't know how old it was. Yeah, anyway, it was a long time ago, but it was fun.
Yeah, I think Dennis Quaid is the astronaut or whatever that gets shrunk down, and then they accidentally inject Martin Short, who's like, I think he's got all these phobias or whatever.
Yeah, that was a good one. It was a fun movie, but who knows if it'll stand up now. Yeah, hearing you describe that sounds kind of interesting. I'll have to check that one out. So the next one for me is one that I didn't know much about. It's called The Autumn Project. This is #1, but this is written by Colin Bunn and art by Christopher Mitten. This is by Oni Press. So the story in a nutshell is about a family who the dad is a fantasy author and he's crafting this fantasy world. And this family is going on vacation, and the world that the father created finds its way into our world in a nutshell. This is one of those books when I do wonder is that there's something else there's something else going on, that this isn't real. The kids are imagining it, or maybe he's writing the story. Maybe this is him writing the rest of the story. And this other world, it really isn't invading ours. It's a way for him to finish his series. It feels like there's something else happening here. There's a deeper something else is happening. It does feel a little YA. I think it probably sounds a little YA. And I always laugh at the whole, successful fantasy author thing, because there's very few of those really when you think about it. But either way, it was okay. I think if it's a slow week, maybe I'll try the second issue, but probably not. Just if I run across it, but otherwise I'll probably skip the second one. The Autumn Project. Yeah. Number 1.
Okay. So now comes my pick of the week, and this is this must say something about us, because you had this same pick of the week last week. I'm just a little bit behind you, and that's Skin Police, which is also by Oni Press. And for me, this one wins the award as having probably one of the more disgusting covers I've seen in a while. I don't know if you had the same one, but it's like we have the what's the main character's name? Brisson Eckes the name doesn't roll off the tongue, but he's on the cover and he shoots a hole through this flesh. So you're like, okay. But I just love some of the use of language here, because this is, I think, 150 years in the future. And I think, as you described, there's been issues with fertility. And so people are doing cloning, and there's kind of various laws and challenges. But people that are cloned, they may go mad. And the word they use is pop. They might pop. And I just love that. I don't know. Something about I think being careful and picking, some of these terms that just work for whatever reason. So just some really original stuff. Very, very pleasing artwork, apart from the cover, but I'm okay with it. I was a little bit surprised with the ending, but I think we've discussed this many times. Comics issue number 1s, they try to wrap things up a lot in the first issue. It's just, to me, the ending was a little bit kind of like, okay, let's try to wrap this up or whatever. But just a great, really great start. And yeah, I added this to my kind of auto, my pull list. So
nice.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. It's definitely has a very, I don't know. There's so many things going on there that, just a really interesting premise. And I like the fact that anyone can be one of these people that will pop.
And this character, Brisson, he works for the Duplicate Identification and Capture Division. Mm-hmm. So just thinking through all of these things really helps make you feel like it's an immersive world.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you were in that world, you would probably be wondering if you are one of these people too. Just don't know it yet.
Exactly. That's what's interesting is, none of you could pop.
Yeah.
Any day. There's also a lot of corruption going on here too. Like, he's not such a good guy. Like, I don't really feel like he's, he's like, well, I'm just doing my job. And yeah, sometimes things don't work out. So if we kill a few people, I mean, just also just really well done. A lot of layers.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Before I move on, I want to thank you for you asked me in the chat here on our recording. It is the Autumn Kingdom. I'm not sure why I wrote down Autumn Project. So yes, the Autumn Kingdom is the book I was talking about a second ago. So yeah, I don't know why I wrote down Project, but
that's okay.
Yeah. All right. So my pick of the week this week was one that surprised me a little bit. I'm not a huge fan of these kind of franchise offshoots, or these, like the existing franchises, they get a comic book run. especially something like Terminator, because I think the franchise is tired and needs a break. You go to bed, you're drunk, kind of thing. And so I was surprised because Terminator 1, this is by Declan Shalvey and Luke Sparrow and Colin Croker, I believe, by Dynamite. And this book, we're basically exploring time and not so much the Terminator, about the inevitability of time, the inevitability of death, of everyone's life ending. And no matter what we do to outrun it or to hide from it, it's creeping closer and closer every day. And it's really not about the Terminator. It's really just about life and death and all those really awesome things that none of us like to think about. So the artwork was fine. I wasn't blown away with the art, but it's basically a story about a couple who was being chased by the Terminator, and just like we're all being chased by time. So I thought it was really great. I thought it was a fun. I like how they use the Terminator to kind of depict time and that creeping inevitability. I keep saying inevitability, but yeah. So yeah, I thought it was really, really great book. So Terminator 1, my pick of the week.
Wow. You know what's interesting? I think we read. I read a few, like it was like a series, an Alien series, I believe, and I think you also read one or two. But that was Marvel, and so for some reason I thought this was going to be Marvel, but it's Dynamite. So I wonder. I don't want to, I don't want to say anything about Disney or whatever, but I think, maybe they have more license to do more creative things with Dynamite. I don't know, with this franchise.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the inner workings of Marvel and Dynamite, but I would assume that the creators have a little bit more control over the stories that are being told at Dynamite than Marvel, because Marvel is Disney, and Disney owns the Alien franchise now. So I would imagine that there's very strict guidelines of what you can and can't do, the characters you can and can't use, the events you can and can't mention. So yeah, but I really love the way that they explored. It's a Terminator story, but it's really not a Terminator story. And I wish they would do something like that with the Alien franchise, but they're very, very straightforward out and very, it feels very boring because it's the same story over and over again. But I was really impressed with this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So that is number 59. Wow, we're rolling along, getting closer and closer. So yeah, thanks everyone for hanging out with us and listening to us, and looking forward to All In, see what other titles are coming this week. And hopefully I'll write the right titles down next week instead of misspeaking. Okay. Yeah, if you'd like to get in touch with us, check out pagestream.com, visit our forums, register there if you aren't already. Come and tell us how wrong we are and whatever it is we said, or tell me how much of an idiot I am for not understanding Precious Metal 5 the way that I probably should. But yeah, so hope everyone has a great week. Let us know what you're reading. There's also a button or a link down below in the description to send us a message if you'd like to send us a message that way. Please feel free and say hello. So until next time, we will talk to everyone very soon.
Bye-bye.